I've been back in Germany for 5 months now, and here are 10 things I already miss about the US. Hallo, Servus, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Feli. I'm a German who spent the last 9 years living in Cincinnati, Ohio, but 5 months ago, I moved back to my hometown, which is Munich, Germany. And I'm sure this list will get longer as time goes on, but even after just 5 months, there are definitely things I miss about the US and my life there. First up, I miss not having to worry about hard water. In most parts of the US, including Ohio and Kentucky, which was the area I lived in, hard water isn't really something you have to deal with. In Germany, on the other hand, it's very common for your appliances to look like this after a few weeks. And let me tell you, having a glass wall in the shower like we do is no fun, because if you don't relentlessly use a squeegee after every single shower, it'll quickly look like this, which is an absolute pain to clean. The reason for this is that Germany's tap water is really hard, especially here in Munich, where it comes from groundwater in the pre-alpine and alpine region. And that groundwater tends to have a lot of natural minerals. That's basically what it means when we say that water is hard, that it has very high amounts of dissolved calcium and magnesium. And that leads to limescale buildup pretty quickly, which is why faucets and fixtures regularly look like this around here, and why you regularly need to descale appliances such as water kettles or coffee makers. Even your faucet heads need to be descaled every now and then. And in addition to the compartments for detergent and rinse aid, dishwashers here also typically have a compartment for salt for the built-in water softening system. As far as I know, most dishwashers in the US don't even have that compartment, and for the entire 9 years I lived in the US, I've never once used or bought dishwasher salt. I also don't remember descaling an appliance there, like ever. Ben said he descaled his espresso machine once in 4 years. And I'm not saying that it's not recommended to descale your appliances in the US, but I personally never had the limescale even get to a point where it seemed necessary. Whereas here in Munich, we have gotten to that point several times already since we moved here. That being said, it's not like the US doesn't have hard water at all. Some places, such as parts of Arizona, Nevada, Texas, New Mexico, California, and even Indiana, do have hard water as well. It really just depends on the geographical conditions and where the water is being sourced from originally. But in most parts of the US, the water is significantly softer, with about 120 to 140 ppm, which stands for parts per million, compared to an average of 285 ppm here in Germany. Both Cincinnati and Munich are right at those average numbers, which means that the water is more than twice as hard here in Munich compared to Cincinnati. Now, if you're thinking, how much longer is she gonna yap on about tap water? Believe me, this affects your daily life way more than you'd think. But while the hardness of the water here can be quite annoying, it does have really high quality and tastes amazing in my opinion. And the water here doesn't have that chlorine smell that you get in the US. I know that most Americans are so used to that smell that they don't even notice it, but let me tell you, every time I come back to the US from Germany, turning on the shower for the first time immediately makes it smell like a swimming pool to me. The second thing I miss about the US is not having to use a VPN for my everyday work. I mean, I knew that if I wanted to stream American TV here in Germany, using my VPN would be necessary, but I truly underestimated how many regular, normal websites are geo-blocked in the US and therefore aren't accessible for me here. Like for the research of this video alone, I noticed that I can't open the website of the city of Cincinnati or even Home Depot. I wanted to check if our American dishwasher model had a salt compartment, but I couldn't even get on the Home Depot website from Germany. This also goes for the Duke Energy website and app. We still have property in the US and pay electric bills, but we can't access those unless we use a VPN and log into a US server. From what I know, they mainly do this to protect against fraud from other countries, but As a legitimate customer, that's a little annoying. Fortunately, I have PIA, which makes this whole switching location thing super easy. PIA has been my VPN of choice for a few years now, and I truly couldn't be happier with them because not only do they have servers to choose from all over the world, they also have servers in each of the 50 US states, which not only makes my life easier when I want to access any of those websites or local news, for example, but it also comes in super handy for sports fans like Ben when watching American sports broadcasts because those often have regional blackouts. But PIA allows you to log into servers in different states so you can easily get around those blackouts. Of course, this also comes in super handy when you want to access the streaming libraries in other countries, like on Netflix or Prime Video. We wanted to watch a few episodes of 2.5 Men the other day and noticed that in Germany, it was on a streaming service that we don't have a subscription for, but in the US, it's on Peacock. So we just logged into a US server. For streaming, I always like to use the streaming optimized ones. And that's how we were able to watch it after all without paying for a new subscription. In addition to that, PIA also encrypts your internet connection and hides your IP address, which can protect you from hackers. That's why I always like to turn on PIA whenever I get on a hotel Wi-Fi or at the airport. If you want to check it out as well, you can actually try PIA 4 whole months for free with my link piavpn.com/Feli from Germany, or if you just scan the QR code. And after that, you'll get an 83% discount with my link, which means that PIA will only cost you $2.03 a month, and you can install it on unlimited devices for your entire household, so it really pays off. Just go to this link, or you can also find all the details in the video description below. Number 3 on my list is, of course, food. I feel like this is the most obvious one, and I knew I was gonna miss a lot of food from the US. However, one food that I didn't expect to miss as much as I do is Indian food. Because Indian food is pretty common here, so I didn't expect that to be a problem, but turns out it's actually really hard to find good Indian food here in Munich, or at least what I've come to consider good Indian food from my time in Cincinnati, where there's a large Indian community. I even had a roommate from Delhi for a while, and she always pointed out which restaurants tasted just like back home, so I'm assuming that what I had in Cincinnati is authentic to at least that region of India. My number one dish has always been vegetable korma, or navratan korma. Every time I've ordered that here in Munich, it was very different from what I was used to, and in my opinion, just not very good. I've even mentioned this on Instagram a while back, and I got a bunch of recommendations from you guys for Indian restaurants to try here in Munich, and I'm still working my way through them, but so far I haven't found the one yet. The reason I'm so surprised by this is that up until now, I never noticed how different the Indian food is here in Munich. I guess in hindsight, it kind of makes sense because I never really particularly cared for Indian cuisine until I moved to the US. Now I know why. Another cuisine I miss, but this one is not a surprise, is Mexican. It's just not very common in Germany, and the few Mexican restaurants that do exist are just not very good typically. And I love Mexican food in the US. In addition to that, I also miss a few products from the store that I used to get quite a lot, such as kettle corn by Boom Chicka Pop, or these chocolate-covered strawberries from Aldi, or these egg wraps. Ben said that he misses American fountain Coke the most. The soda just tastes a little different here in Germany, and he says that he specifically misses the crispiness of fountain Cokes in the US. Then, as a guy from Kentucky, he misses sweet tea. He also says that making it at home with German tea bags just doesn't quite taste the same. So he's actually had friends bring him Louisiana tea bags from the US. He also just misses Southern style food in general. Then, of course, Cincinnati chili, though he's also already gotten several deliveries of canned chili from Cincinnati, which makes up for it a little bit. And as for specific products, I know that he's been looking for peach-flavored oatmeal everywhere because that's a staple he always gets in the US, as well as American breakfast sausage, which he hasn't found yet. That being said, Ben and I actually both overall prefer the food selection here in Germany and just the overall quality of products. Which brings me to the next point, because while we do actually prefer the products here in Germany, we do miss the fun of going to the grocery store in the US. I'm sure this isn't a universal experience, but Ben and I have always really enjoyed going grocery shopping together in Cincinnati. Like whenever we went together, it would almost feel like a little date night because a lot of the stores in Cincinnati don't get super crowded, especially if you go outside of the peak times. And I feel like American grocery stores kind of have that feel of like being a kid in the candy store. Here in Germany, when we try to go to the store together, it actually gets really stressful most of the time because German stores just tend to be a lot smaller, especially in bigger cities like here in Munich, with a lot of people all trying to get through at the same time. So it gets cramped in there, and when we go together, we usually have to split up most of the time. So it definitely feels much more like a stressful errand here rather than a fun activity, especially when it's time to check out. I'm sure you guys have heard about how German cashiers check you out at record speed. It's almost become like a meme within the USA-Germany content bubble.
Oh, could you slow down, please?
And that's very true, but it's also pretty stressful even before you get to the checkout. And avoiding the crowds isn't as easy here either because store hours are pretty limited in Germany, and specifically here in the state of Bavaria. All stores are closed on Sundays and public holidays, and on business days they're only open till 8 p.m. So people really don't have as much of a choice as to when they go to the store. Now, to be fair, I should point out that we usually shop at our local Lidl, Aldi, or Rewe. There are also stores like Hit or Kaufland that tend to be a lot larger and more spread out, similar to the US, but we don't have one of those around the corner, so it wouldn't really make sense for us to go there for our everyday grocery needs. Now, what we don't miss about grocery shopping in the US are the prices, that's for sure. When we walk out with a full cart of groceries here at Lidl, we usually end up under 100 euros, maybe around like 80, whereas in the US, even when we would shop at Aldi, a full cart would usually be around like $120 at least.
Total is $165.88.
Granted, right now with the dollar being so weak, this difference might not seem super big from an American point of view because of the conversion, but a little over a year ago, when the dollar and euro were at about the same value, this would have been a pretty noticeable difference. The next point on my list is a pretty personal one, but it wouldn't be an honest list without it. I definitely miss our house in the US. We both do. And that has nothing to do with our living situation here in Munich. We actually got super lucky and have lots of space here. If you're interested, I made a video about our German home a couple months ago. But we both just really love our house in the US, and we've put so much love and care into it over the years. And of course, when you then move across the Atlantic with only a few boxes, you pretty much have to start all over and have to get furniture and decor and art for the wall, etc. Which can be a lot of fun too, having a clean canvas to start over with, basically. But we definitely have our moments where we just miss the house and the neighborhood and that feeling of home, if that makes sense. And we also sometimes have conversations about things that we didn't bring that, in hindsight, we kind of wish we had brought. Like over Christmas, we realized that, while obviously it wouldn't have been feasible to bring our entire Christmas decor, it would have been really nice to have our stockings here, because we have 4 stockings with our names and the names of our 2 cats on them, and it would have been really nice to have those over Christmas. You know, it's the sentimental stuff. Number 6 of things that I miss about the US is bar culture. And some of you might be confused by this because isn't Munich the city of Oktoberfest? Isn't there a beer festival at every corner here? And you're not wrong. I mean, every corner would be an exaggeration, of course, but yes, there are lots of social gatherings and festivities here throughout the year. But I'm specifically talking about going to bars and pubs because I feel like that's just so much more flexible and, in my opinion, more fun in the US, where you can just walk into a bar, grab a drink, and then find a place to sit or stand. And if you want to leave after one drink and head to the next bar, that's not a problem at all. Here in Munich, most bars have table service, meaning you'll have to have a seat, maybe even make a reservation up front, then wait for your server, wait to pay before you can leave, etc. Bars where you just casually hang out and pay for a drink at the counter do exist, of course, but I would say they're not quite as common here. That's my perception, my experience at least. And my perception perception is also that even at those places, people don't mingle and socialize quite as much. So I feel like it's a different vibe. I mean, I guess that's just the overall German mentality too. You'll go out with your friends, and for the most part, those will be the only people you talk to. Random conversations with strangers don't happen as often here. Now, I know that some cities in Germany do have a little bit more of a pub culture, the Reeperbahn in Hamburg, for example, and of course there is a very active clubbing scene in Germany, but I'm really specifically talking about going to the bars because that's what I personally prefer, and that's something that I always really enjoyed in Cincinnati from day one. Pub crawls too, and all of that is just a little different here. And I will say, even in Prague a couple months ago during our Christmas market group trip, we couldn't find a bar on a Thursday night where a group of about 15 people could go to. Every bar we tried either had a rule where you had to be seated, standing at the counter was against the rules, or they were closing at 10 or 11, or they were full and we should have gotten a reservation. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that wouldn't have been a big problem in most cities in the US. Okay, now let's get into the ins and outs of our real everyday life here in Munich. And I'm fully aware that this is gonna make me sound like a spoiled American brat, but I miss our big trash cans in the US, like the outdoor ones. We just had those gigantic trash cans in the US, one for landfill and one for recycling, which got picked up once a week. Here in Munich, our trash cans are tiny in comparison, and they only get emptied every other week. And don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware and agree with the fact that that's a good thing. It forces us to be a lot more conscious about how much trash we produce. But especially during these first few months, when we had so many new things delivered, from furniture to household items, it definitely cost us a bit of a headache at times because we just had more trash than we could fit in the trash cans. As is common in Munich, we have one trash can for landfill, one for paper, and one for organic waste such as vegetables or grass clippings. Most other German cities also have a trash can for plastic waste, but here in Munich, we have to separately bring that to these containers that you'll find in every neighborhood. We can bring metal here, plastic waste, and glass. Of course, most bottles and cans we actually bring back to the store because they have up to a 25-cent deposit that we get back when we return them. But things like jelly jars, soup cans, or cat food cans can be brought here. Now, if you're wondering why this even stands out to me as a native-born German, when I lived on my own in Munich, my apartment complex just had big dumpsters for all residents, so size wasn't really something I had to worry about back then. And growing up, my family did actually have larger trash cans, but those cost more too. And in our case here, it's the landlord who pays for it, and this is how it's set up. Number 8 of things that I miss about the US are window screens. As you guys probably know by now, German windows don't typically come with built-in bug screens as is common in the US, and most Germans never add any to their windows either. They just live without bug screens, and honestly, that usually works just fine. I mean, it's not like we don't have any bugs here in Germany, but we definitely have fewer insects overall compared to the US, just due to climate and landscapes here. And obviously, if you open up your window at night, don't do it while the lights are on in your home. In that case, you're definitely going to attract bugs. So why are screens even on my list then? Well, because we have 2 indoor cats, and I never realized how tricky life is when you have indoor cats and no bug screens. Growing up in Germany, my family always had a cat that was allowed to go outside anyway. But Ben and my cats weren't allowed to go outside in the US for different reasons, such as proximity to a busy street, natural predators, etc. And we don't want to let them go outside here either because we don't know where we're gonna live in the future, and we feel like once they go outside, it would be really mean to take that away from them. So our cats will stay indoor cats for now. That being said, do you guys remember me talking about this? Lüften, which is something that Germans love to do. Lüften / airing out the house / house burping is something you kind of gotta do in a German house, otherwise it gets super stuffy. And having windows that open up all the way but don't have screens definitely makes that a little difficult with the cats. So we often just end up airing out one room at a time with the door closed so the cats can't get in there, but that's literally the least effective way to air out a room. Sometimes we try to lock both cats in one space for a while so that we can properly air everything out with all windows open at the same time, but That's a hassle. So now that spring is kind of arriving here in Munich, I think one of our next little house projects will have to be adding window screens so that the air can come in, but the cats can't get out. And I know that some people will write in the comments that bug screens aren't 100% safe, cats can still lean against them or destroy them, but in the US they never even attempted that, so I personally don't think that's gonna be a problem, honestly. Now, going along with this, I did also write AC on my list, but since we moved here, it actually hasn't been warm enough for us to even know if and how much we miss having AC in the house. So that's something we're gonna have to figure out once it gets warmer here. Maybe we'll end up getting a portable AC unit. I'll keep you updated on that. Number 9 on my list probably doesn't come as a huge surprise. Customer service. Yes, I do miss the friendly American customer service and the nice interactions that come with it sometimes. Here in Germany, it can definitely happen that it takes you 20 minutes to flag the waiter down to get the check, and then it takes another eternity until they actually come back with the check. Or that at a hotel, a car alarm will be going off outside the window all night, and when you tell the front desk, they just say, "We know, but don't offer you anything to make up for it, not even a free drink." Okay, the last thing actually happened in Strasbourg in France, but I don't think it would be any different over here in Germany. Of course, it's not like all German customer service is bad. There are some great and super friendly people out there as well, but it's definitely not as consistent as in the US. And with small talk just not really being a thing here, even the friendly ones usually keep things pretty short and to the point. And last but not least, I miss fast internet and stable phone reception. Because listen, Germany is a first world country in a lot of regards, but this is an aspect where Germany has a lot of catching up to do. And they're working on it, but it's a work in progress. When we first got here 5 months ago, my German phone provider was Vodafone, which is one of the big ones here in Germany. But I quickly found out that in the radius of where we live, I barely had any reception, even though we literally live within the city of Munich. And that's not an uncommon experience here in Germany. Of course, it gets even worse in rural areas. In our case, it turned out that it was just the Vodafone coverage that was bad here, so I eventually switched over to Telekom/T-Mobile and also got Ben a Telekom SIM card. And now we have great reception at home, but that shouldn't even be a problem to begin with. And even the internet speed at our home was significantly slower than what we were used to back in the US because we only had a DSL connection, which works through your telephone line. In the US, DSL never even really became a big thing. Instead, internet came through the TV cable for the longest time. But here in Germany, most people have had DSL for the last 20 years or so. However, we actually just got an upgrade this week because Germany is currently rolling out fiber optics internet all over the country, so Glasfaser in German. Finally, I have to say, because as you can see here, we're a little behind compared to other European countries. Fiber is significantly faster than DSL, so we're super excited that we finally got that upgrade here, but most households in Germany are still waiting for their fiber internet connection. For comparison, in the US, cable internet was already superior to DSL, and fiber optics internet is available to about half of US households at this time. Okay, wow, that got a lot longer than I expected, but those were my 10 things that I miss about the US after 5 months of living back in Germany. Are there any points that surprised you? Anything that you thought was missing on the list? And if you've ever lived abroad, or currently do, what are the things that you miss about your home country? Let me know in the comments below. By the way, you can also watch or listen to all of my videos on Spotify, so be sure to check out my page and leave a review for me on there. And of course, you can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok for more content. If you like what I do here on my channel, you can always support me by subscribing to the channel for free, giving this video a thumbs up, or by sending me a super thanks, or supporting me via Patreon or Ko-fi.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time. Tschüss!